Namaste, everyone, and a very warm welcome back to At the Heart of Auroville, a series where we explore the vision, voices, and living spirit of the City of Dawn. Through this series, we meet the many pioneers, contributors, and seekers who have dedicated their lives to shaping Auroville, not as an ideal on paper, but as a living experiment in consciousness and collective evolution. Today, I have the joy of welcoming Srijita Roy, an educator, counselor, and researcher whose work beautifully bridges philosophy, learning, and humanitarian service. Over the last
Thank you.
3 decades, she has worked with adolescents, adults, and communities across India and Europe, exploring how learning can become a pathway to transformation. Right from teaching French and integral education to working on issues like human trafficking, domestic violence, and rehabilitation, her journey reflects a deep and sustained commitment to human dignity and inner growth. Srijita, welcome to the podcast and thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Meka. Namaste. And as my one of my favorite introductions would be, I am a child of Sri Aurobindo and the Mother and strive to be worthy of it. Thank you.
How beautiful, how beautiful. Srijita, you've lived and worked in India and France, moving through very different worlds and yet carrying the same inner flame. Can you take us back to where it all began? What first drew you to Auroville and to the path of education and service?
So yes, it's a story which dates 40 years back
Mm-hmm.
when I had applied on my own during one of my vacations to Pondicherry with my parents from
Mm-hmm.
Kolkata.
Mm-hmm.
I went to the ashram school and I applied on my own for admission because I wasn't happy with the education system and learning by rote, which was very common in those days and maybe even today.
Mm-hmm.
I was very fortunate to have been admitted to the Sri Aurobindo International Center of Education at the age of 14,
Mm-hmm.
which,
Mm-hmm.
as many of you might know, is almost the cutoff age to get an admission there.
Mm-hmm.
And that is where education, the interest in education started because I came to the ashram school with that interest. Maybe I should mention I come from a family, both my parents are from Kolkata, but both of them are atheists, which was not very common in those days.
Mm-hmm.
I thank them today because it has taken me on my journey, on a very positive journey, to
Mm-hmm.
discover different ways of life, different cultures with an open mind.
Mm-hmm.
So, my love for Mother and Sri Aurobindo started there until today, as you very nicely put it, the inner flame. I hope it continues forever. That is something which brought me to the path of education and has still continued to be the main, I would say, the main thread of my life.
Mm-hmm. Wow, thank you for sharing that, Srijita. And it's a very interesting journey as such a young person to have felt called. Beautiful. And I know that you studied philosophy and languages at the Sri Aurobindo International Center of Education and then later pursued social sciences in Paris. How did these two influences, both East and West, spirituality and social science, come together in shaping the way you see human growth?
Well, very interesting question for me. I think it all these questions can be answered depending on the perspective from which we look at it,
Mm-hmm.
and everybody will have a different perspective. So mine was I just wanted to read Mother and Sri Aurobindo and apply in my life. I hadn't planned really to pursue my stuff for the studies. I actually wanted to stay back in the ashram, and then somehow I went on to make that choice. And I think, in terms of spirituality and social science, there is a link because we are studying the human being and the behavior and what changes, what happens, and why. And these answers are there in spirituality. Of course, in different ways you can take it. But for me, Sri Aurobindo and Mother have answered these questions. So, although I went far away from home, I
Mhm.
still remained at Pondicherry at the ashram, and that has been the core of my life.
How beautiful. That takes me to my next question, which is when you look back at the arc of your life from India to Europe and then back to Auroville, what inner question or calling has remained constant throughout for you?
I think at a very tender age of 10, I started revolting in Kolkata against the system of education. I was, of course, in one of the good schools. I don't, but still, we had to learn by rote, exams, and all the rest.
Mm-hmm.
It did not suffice when I was told at home, this has to be done this way.
Mm-hmm.
I needed to know why and how.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that brought me to the line of education and service
Mm-hmm.
because it is how you do things, not what you do,
Mm-hmm.
which will make your path or make your journey or make you grow, as you said, inner growth. Yes, the inner and the outer are linked.
Mm-hmm.
So it is, we have to have an outer work which will make us grow inside. And thankfully, that has happened for me even while working on social science, because I must say I didn't go into an academic university, which I all through thought would not give me my answers. I have nothing against it.
Mm-hmm.
But I worked on the field and then turned my field project, all my diaries, all my notes into my thesis finally for my master's on prevention of human trafficking.
Yeah, and that speaks volumes about your own integration of what you learned and bringing it into a practical shape and form. That's wonderful. Um, you've spent decades and just researching and practicing new teaching methodologies, especially for learners who don't fit into conventional education systems. In your experience, what makes integral education so powerful and so relevant today?
So again, I think this is something which has been there right since the days of the ashram school, that praxis and theory go together. Each has its place, and it is important for us to move from praxis to theory and back to praxis. I found it in integral education, and later on, also at the university, I chose action research over academic research. Today, I find the time to sit and understand the link between integral education and action research. So, yeah, in some way, I feel uh, that is how it is. I would say.
And how do you bring the principles of Sri Aurobindo and the mother into the classroom beyond language or curriculum?
Right. So, in the teaching methods which I have researched, whether it was working with school dropouts in the beginning, which I never believed because I told my students the school has dropped out on you. You have not dropped out. We always had to find methods to, to get them back to become active learners. So there is no recipe for this. There is no nothing written. You experiment, you find out this works for this person, that doesn't work for that person.
Mhm.
And that's the way to go. So
Yeah, and from what you're saying, it is again that same premise of accepting individuals for who they are and seeing the divine within them, not rejecting them because they have been rejected previously. Which of
yes, I would like to add here that I actually have had in my life now, when I look back, worked with people who didn't fit into any system.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Maybe that was something which I got drawn to because I thought I was very fortunate to have received the education, especially at the ashram school. And I'm
mm,
sure if all of them had received the same education, they would have also had a wonderful path.
yeah. So you were able to pass it on in your own way.
I
Wow.
tried.
And is there a moment, perhaps from your teaching or mentoring, that captures what integral learning feels like when a student's growth touches something beyond the academic? Because that's something that in your journey feels like has been an important part?
Yes, so for example, I'm teaching French for 16 to 18-year-olds these days, and language can be boring sometimes, for the youth. So how to arouse that interest and that love of learning. And my teachers in the ashram school, most of them were sadhaks, and they gave us such profound lessons in simplicity. So that is what I try to use, simple methods. For example, I ask my students, what is your preoccupation? At this moment, what are you thinking of?
Mm-hmm.
Which will be linked to their personal experiences. Somebody is experiencing anger, somebody is experiencing frustration, somebody is in a failed relationship, or so he says, or so she says.
Mm-hmm.
Then we try and see what Mother and Sri Aurobindo have said on these subjects and in
Mm-hmm.
French.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So you see, this is just but one example.
Mm-hmm.
It
Yeah.
has to be in relation to the preoccupation of the learner.
Yeah. It's a very valid point and goes to show how that integration of integral learning is happening on the ground as you're working with them. Um, I have another question. So you've also worked extensively on difficult human realities, from trafficking and violence prevention to rehabilitation and counseling. How did this kind of work transform your understanding of human nature?
Yes, of course. It was very tough. It was very tough. I saw things, you know, which one could never think is possible. Growing up in a family where you receive love, affection, and a good education, you can't even think what goes on in the field of human trafficking. So I did see horrendous things. My way of moving forward was by journaling.
Mm-hmm.
So I used to come home from the field and write. And I think what slowly dawned on me is that, my God, I'm so lucky. I'm so fortunate. What have I to complain about? So it brings you on a different path to see it's very relative. Whatever we say, happiness, peace, growth, all these have different connotations for different people, depending on their experience. And that also taught me a lot of humility, less of opinions and more of facts.
Yeah. That letting go of that judgment and sticking to the facts is interesting and also feels like gratitude and humility were a big part of your own journey there. And when you met people in such vulnerable situations, what did you learn about resilience and about the possibility of inner change even in the toughest circumstances?
So let me tell you, my first example of resilience is my own father, who grew up with very little
Mm-hmm.
and was very positive. So of course I had an image growing up. Um, with the people whom I worked, if we think about resilience, I think each person has a tremendous potential. When I look at the work I did now in the fields when I went, the suffering that I saw, can you imagine that those women and men and children are still holding on to life? I don't think I would have managed. That's courage. And it's not us, social workers or sociologists or psychologists, pulling them out of that to mainstream them. No, it is their decision. We have to empower them. So it was not one day, it was many months of accompanying each person. We are there, our doors are open. You feel like coming, it's fine. So, not to hold on to consequences, not to say tomorrow itself, I must be able to, you know, take out so many victims and, okay, make a big thing out of it in the news. No, That's not what it is. We're talking about people's sufferings. And give them that space that we are always there. And I thank all my colleagues with whom I worked in France and in India that they taught me so much patience, to wait for the right moment and be there for these people when they need us.
And supportive presence facilitates courage and inner change. From what you said,
Yes.
that is a very big thing that emerges. How wonderful that you were able to hold space for them the way that you did, and allow them to experience a different possibility. And given your deep roots in Auroville, how do you see the relevance of the Auroville spirit, the idea of human unity and conscious evolution, in addressing such social challenges?
So in Auroville, I feel that when we're talking about two things you said, human unity and conscious evolution, right? So, of course, first thing is for me that we should read Mother and Sri Aurobindo. If we are here, on which human unity are we speaking about? It is Sri Aurobindo's vision of human, because there are so many people who have written. And with all due respect to all philosophers, all sociologists, we should read to enlarge our consciousness. But at the end of the day, we should not forget that we should also read, if not give a priority to Sri Aurobindo's vision. So, like human cycle, ideal of human unity, for and self determination. How can it be achieved? Through our daily work. It is actually quite simple. If I focus on my work, through the work I'm going to progress. And Mother speaks about this, right? To the early Aurovillians. So we need to continue and we need to be patient.
Yeah,
We will always be given what we need as experience, not necessarily what we desire,
yeah.
to make us grow, to contribute, and that unity will come by all the individuals who are able to do some work and progress.
Mm. So the spirit of perseverance and connection, constant connection and devotion is what I'm hearing a lot of. And I can see how in your own journey that has played a very huge role in helping you stay consistent and stay open and receive abundantly in terms of the grace as well. And that brings me to the fact that you've served in many vital roles in Auroville, from the Matri Mandir offerings desk to the safety and security team, and now with the emergency medical services. What does seva or service mean to you within the Aurovillian context?
So, service, again, going back to what we were taught in the ashram school and what Mother tells us about, it's joy which comes through making an effort. It is not serving my neighbor, my friend. It's not that. It is doing what has to be done at this moment to the best of my possibility and surrender to her at the end of the day. Let thy will be done.
Hmm. Such a profound statement that we often forget, but I'm going to use this as a grounding reminder for all of us. Let thy will be done. And you've also worked in moments of conflict and crisis where empathy and practicality must coexist. What helps you personally stay centered and compassionate when you're faced with human pain or difficult decisions?
So, of course, we all have emotions. There have been moments I have come back home and shed tears. But for me, the Mother has sailed me through. I just feel so grateful. Every time during those moments, whenever I have remembered her, things have happened much, much better. When I forgot, I saw the difference. So, the aspiration to do as well as I can what I'm given to do and remember her during those difficult moments, surrender to her, and have the patience that it will be, there will be time.
And in your view, what are the qualities most needed for a community like Auroville to grow in collective harmony and safety?
Well, I think that all the 12 qualities which we often hear are extremely important, which Mother had given us. But among them, what comes to my mind is a deep aspiration for perfection instead of an ambition for success. There's nothing wrong with success, but we are not here for that. We are here for doing perfectly as possible, what has been given to us, and to surrender to her, not being attached to the consequences of the work. This is something I can give an example from the daily work of the emergency medical services.
Mm-hmm.
I
I'd
am
love
the
to hear that.
dispatcher right now, so I take the calls at home, but nobody needs to know if it is this person or that person who has helped. The help has to be given at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
So, this is what I also tell the young members in the team. As you go forward, let the work be done as perfectly as possible. Let's not attach ourselves to the consequences. So the ego, let it move away as much as it can. That is what we were taught, or we are told to practice. And we keep trying.
And that spirit of service, also in what you're saying right now, Srijita, reflects in a really big way. Because without that spirit of service, it's very hard to continue persevering, you know, keeping the flame of devotion and aspiration alive. So I see what you mean by the 12 qualities. I also see how letting go of the consequences and focusing on personal action and allowing grace to intervene as and when required comes through in what you're saying. Um, Today's youth, Srijita, are growing up in a world of noise, speed, and distraction. I'm sure you've seen a lot of that firsthand. What do you think they most need to understand about education, freedom, and responsibility to stay connected to something higher?
Right. So this is something which is very close to my heart because there are a lot of youngsters whom I receive in mostly informally, not formally, but lot of young people who say, how do you manage to work like this? Or, I'm 55, so they say, oh, you are still managing to work at night, take calls. Well, I tell them only one thing. If you have an overload of information, just stay focused on one thing at a time. Try and dream something positive and pursue that dream. Because I see most of them, they're getting lost. They have a lot of goodwill. But when I ask them, what are your priorities? The answer is often, I don't know. So, to the young who would like to come, I would always say, we are here, we will try our best. I don't mean in terms of guiding or teaching, but we have to just be an example. Lead through example, not just through words. If I expect my students to be there at 6 o'clock in the morning at the ambulance shed, I have to be there 5 minutes before 6, right?
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
just one example.
Yeah. And finally, Srijita, if you could leave one message for those who feel drawn to Auroville's ideals but are unsure of where to begin, what would you say to them?
So I would say if you are drawn to this dream of the mother, that is the text. what she wrote in 1954 is a beautiful text. Read it again and again and be inspired by that. Don't get lost by so many other external things. And difficulties will be there. This is not a place to just come and settle down and, say at the end of the day, oh, it's all. No, it is a place for an adventure, she said. Right? So if you love adventure, every obstacle will be turned into an opportunity for progress. In my life, I have seen that happening even before joining Auroville, right since the ashram school days. And every time I remember and I offer, it works out fine. I learn what I have to learn, I contribute what I have to contribute for Auroville to manifest. So, to all the youth and all the young people who want to come, of course, we need most welcome and we are here to help.
That's such a beautiful message, Srijita, and definitely the call to an adventure and recognizing that every obstacle is an opportunity for each of us as souls to progress is a very noble suggestion and welcome note that you've just left us with. So I just want to take a moment to thank you, Srijita, for sharing your story and insights with us today. Your journey reminds us that education in its truest sense is not about information, it's about transformation. It's about learning to live consciously, to serve with compassion, and to see life itself as a field of evolution. And to everyone listening, thank you so much for joining us on At the Heart of Auroville. May these conversations continue to awaken in us the aspiration to live more deeply, more purposefully, and more unitedly in the spirit of the mother's dream. Namaste.
Thank you. Namaste.